concept. It seems to control everything around us. Time is a mysterious and elusive concept. It seems to control everything around us, our schedules, our aging, our memories, and even the way we think about life itself. But what if I told you that time, as we know it, doesn't actually exist? It's not a physical entity that can be touched or seen. It's not something that flows in one direction like an arrow. Rather, it is an illusion, a construct of human perception. This isn't just a fanciful idea. It's a notion deeply explored by one of the most profound modern philosophers, Henry Bergson. His thoughts on time challenge the way we traditionally understand it and open up a new perspective on reality. In this video, we'll dive into Bergson's fascinating philosophy and unravel why time might be nothing more than a construct of our minds, an illusion we've been conditioned to believe. To understand why time doesn't exist in the way we think, we need to begin with Henry Bergson's distinction between two different kinds of time: measured time and duration. Measured time is what we commonly understand when we talk about time. It's the time we can see on clocks, calendars, and schedules. This time is divided into neat measurable units: seconds, minutes, hours, days. It moves in a straight line from past to present to future, much like a timeline we're all expected to follow. But Bergson argued that this way of looking at time is a gross oversimplification, a construct created by human beings to impose order on the chaos of life. It's the time we use to plan and organize our lives, but it's not the real essence of time. In fact, it's an illusion. It's a tool we invented to make sense of the world, but just because it's convenient doesn't mean it's real. Think about it. Can you ever actually see time? You can look at the hands of a clock moving, but that's just motion, mechanical parts moving in space. What we call time is really just a measure of how things change, not time itself. We created clocks and calendars to help us quantify change, but time, if we strip away the tools, is not something that exists in the way we've been conditioned to believe. For Bergson, real time is not something that can be divided into measurable units. It's something much more fluid and continuous. He called this duration, and he believed it's how we actually experience time in our lives. Think about your daily experiences. When you're deeply engrossed in a conversation with a friend or lost in a creative task, time seems to vanish. Hours can pass in what feels like minutes. On the other hand, when you're bored or anxious, perhaps stuck in traffic or waiting for a doctor's appointment, time seems to crawl. Each second stretches on, and you feel every agonizing moment to tick by. This isn't just a quirk of human perception, it's the true nature of time, according to Bergson. Duration is subjective. It's something we feel rather than something we can measure. In duration, there are no separate moments, no divisions between past, present, and future. Everything flows together, with one moment melting into the next. Where measured time is an abstraction, duration is the real experience of time, which we live through in a continuous stream. But because we've been trained to think of time in terms of measurable units, we often ignore this deeper, more authentic experience of time. Bergson's distinction between measured time and duration leads to another fascinating insight. The past and future don't really exist. The only thing that truly exists is the present moment. This moment, right now. Think about it. When you reflect on the past, you're doing so in the present. Your memories of what happened last week or last year are mental constructs, thoughts happening right now. Similarly, when you imagine the future, that too is happening in the present. You're thinking about what might happen tomorrow, next month, or 10 years from now. But that imagining is taking place now. In this sense, the past and future are illusions. They don't exist as independent entities. They are just projections of the mind. The only thing that is ever real is the present moment, because it's the only moment we ever actually experience. We live in the now, and all our thoughts about the past or the future happen within this ever-present moment of duration. This leads to a radical conclusion. Time as we usually think of it, a linear progression from past to future, is nothing but a mental framework. We've been conditioned to view time in this way because it's useful for organizing our lives, but it doesn't reflect the deeper reality of time. In truth, everything is happening in the present. Bergson's idea of duration explains why our perception of time can vary so wildly. When you're engaged in something joyful or exciting, time seems to disappear. Hours can pass in what feels like minutes, but when you're stuck in a dull, tedious task, time seems to slow down, with every second dragging on interminably. This phenomenon is deeply tied to Bergson's distinction between duration and measured time. In moments of joy or creativity, we're living fully in duration. We're not thinking about the ticking clock or the passage of time. We're absorbed in the flow of experience, and because duration is fluid and continuous, time feels expansive and open. In these moments, the illusion of measured time fades, and we're left with the raw, unfiltered experience of living. On the other hand, when we're bored or anxious, we become hyper-aware of measured time. We start counting the minutes, watching the clock, and this breaks us out of the flow of duration. The more we focus on the passage of time, the more it seems to slow down, because we're stepping outside of duration and into the artificial framework of measured time. Henri Bergson's ideas about time were not without controversy. In fact, his views led to a famous intellectual clash with none other than Albert Einstein, the father of modern physics. Einstein's theory of relativity revolutionized our understanding of time, showing that time is not a fixed, universal constant, but something that can be warped and stretched depending on factors like speed and gravity. Einstein's view of time was grounded in science and mathematics. Time is something that can be measured and manipulated. Bergson, on the other hand, argued that Einstein's theory didn't capture the true essence of time as it is experienced by human beings. For Bergson, time was not something that could be broken down into mathematical formulas or measured with clocks. It was something subjective and deeply tied to our consciousness. Their debate, which took place in the 1920s, was a battle between two radically different views of time: the objective, measurable time of physics and the subjective, experiential time of philosophy. Einstein famously quipped, "The time of the philosophers does not exist," dismissing Bergson's view as irrelevant to the physical reality of time. But for Bergson, Einstein's mathematical time was just another form of measured time, the same kind of time that clocks measure, and the same kind of time that Bergson argued was an illusion. While Einstein's theory could explain how time behaves in the physical universe, Bergson was more concerned with how we experience time in our lives. In many ways, this debate between Bergson and Einstein continues today. Science gives us one way of understanding time, but philosophy offers another. And while science may explain the mechanics of time, it is the philosophy that delves into the deeper question: what is time as we experience it? Bergson's philosophy doesn't just challenge our understanding of the present, it also offers a radical rethinking of memory and the past. According to Bergson, our memories are not stored in some distant, static past. Instead, they exist in the present moment as part of the flow of duration. Think about how you experience memory. When you recall something that happened years ago, that memory is not locked in the past, waiting for you to retrieve it. It's something that arises in your consciousness now. The memory itself is a part of your current experience, happening in the present moment. This means that the past isn't really gone. It's always with us, part of the continuous flow of duration. In a sense, we carry the past with us wherever we go. It's woven into the fabric of the present, always influencing and shaping our experience of the now. This idea also challenges the traditional view of time as something that moves in a straight line from past to future. If the past is always present within us, then time is not a line, it's a continuous, ever-present flow. The past and future are just different aspects of the present, and everything we experience is happening within this eternal now. So what does it mean to live in a world where time, as we commonly understand it, doesn't exist? For Bergson, recognizing the illusion of time is not just an abstract philosophical exercise, it's a path to greater freedom. When we're trapped in the framework of measured time, we often feel pressured by deadlines, schedules, and the ticking clock. We become obsessed with the passage of time, worrying about the future and regretting the past. This creates anxiety and stress, making us feel like we're constantly running out of time. But when we realize that time is an illusion, we can begin to live more freely. We can stop worrying about the past or the future because we recognize that they don't really exist. They're just mental constructs. Instead, we can focus on the present moment, living fully in duration. This doesn't mean we ignore the practicalities of life. Of course, we still have to show up to meetings on time and meet deadlines. But by shifting our perspective on time, we can free ourselves from the mental prison of the clock. We can appreciate the richness of each moment, rather than constantly worrying about the passage of time. Henri Bergson's philosophy offers a profound rethinking of time. It challenges the traditional view of time as something linear, measurable, and external, and instead presents time as something fluid, subjective, and deeply tied to our consciousness. By understanding time as an illusion, a construct created by human beings, we can begin to live more fully in the present moment, embracing the flow of duration and letting go of the artificial constraints of the clock. In the end, Bergson's ideas don't just offer a new way of thinking about time, they offer a new way of living. By recognizing the illusion of time, we can free ourselves from the pressures of the ticking clock and find greater peace and freedom in the present moment.